Hey there, and welcome to the Pro Tools 110 ebook exercise 9. This is the penultimate chapter. There's just one more after this, and it's definitely going to feel like there's only one more after this because these last two chapters are big ones. They pretty much, especially the last chapter, but they both kind of sum up everything you've learned. So these are going to be particularly big ones. So let's just get started. So exercise 9, using automation. So this is basically mixing. That's what automation is. It's mixing. You've got all your clips in there. You've set basic levels. You've added effects. Now you want to actually mix the levels. You want the music to be loud and then duck down underneath the dialogue and then come back up again after the dialogue's done. That's mixing. So let's get started. Looks like we'll be going to the Ugly Duckling session for this. So I'm just gonna go straight to the source. That's in the Pro Tools 110 download media, folder 4, Ugly Duckling. So here we go. Right there, and right there. And we're gonna call this, what do they want us to call this? 110 exercise 9, my initials. 110 exercise 9 KT. Let's see here, stereo mix. This is a commercial for TV, so I'm going to change it to 24-bit 48. That's what it should be. Okay, here we go. Make this a little bigger. Okay. So what are we gonna mix here? Where'd you go? There we go. Okay, first thing you need to do for automation is you need to enable it. Automation is a powerful and therefore dangerous feature that you don't want to use until you're ready. And as you can see in this window right here, this is the automation activation window, and there's a big button that says suspend. When you click on that, it turns red. That means no automation can happen anywhere. Basically, a red button means it's turned on. So we can automate plugins. So we can automate effects. So if you want reverb to be low in the beginning and go high and then go low again, for example, you can automate that. Volume, panning, mute. Maybe you just want a track to go full volume and then full mute, full volume, mute, full volume, mute. You can automate that. Super cool. And all the S volume, S pan, S mute, those are sends. You can also automate your sends as well. So that's more 200 level stuff, but today we're just going to focus on automating the volume, and I think maybe automating an effect as well. So that would be volume and plugin. So we want to make sure that the volume is red, and we're just going to emulate this. So window, automation, and here's our window. So again, if I hit suspend, look, they all go off. And look at this up here in my edit window. This is the automation mode selector right here. Watch what happens when I hit suspend. Look, they're all grayed out. I could still see what's in there, but it won't let me actually do anything. So in this case, this looks like how it does in the ebook. So let's just keep it like that. But I just want you to know that whatever is on means it can be automated. So what I suggest everyone do is, for example, after you're done automating, say, your plugin, go into this window, automation window, and unenable it, because you don't want to accidentally write over all the automation that you did. That would be terrible. For now, keep it all turned on. But when you get done with one aspect, turn it off. Okay. So locate the music track, click the automation mode selector, and put it into touch mode. Okay, so let's do that. And while I'm doing that, think about what touch mode means. Touch. And you see there's different modes here. What we did in the 101 book is we learned what read means. Read is just the default. So if there's automation that we've added to a track and we're in read mode, which we are by default, then we will hear the hard work, automation work that we did. All of these other ones, touch latch, and write, are all actual automation types. So we learned how to write, and what writing is actually, click on waveform, volume. What writing does is when you play, it is doing automation. See that red line? I'm not doing anything with faders or anything. When I'm in write mode, it is just recording automation, whether I'm doing anything or not. And it's doing automation to all of these things. So if you're in write mode, everything, panning, muting, plugins, if you've done any work on those things and you think, oh, I'm all done, and then you go say, oops, work on your volume, for example, automation, your panning automation is going to get overwritten if you're in write mode. Because write mode is sort of like, it's kind of like, it's extreme automation. When it's on, whatever automation is turned on, it just basically writes over what you did last time. That's why it's called writing. It's cool, but what I like to do is I like to do mostly things in touch mode. Watch what happens when you're in touch mode and you hit play.
I checked that already, sir.
Until I actually touch the fader, no automation happens. And when I let go of the fader, it goes back to not automating anything. So let's go in the mix window, for example. And I'll shut that. Okay, so this is what? The music track right here. I'm in touch mode. Watch what happens when I move the fader down. There we go.
It's making a sound.
Move it down. See that?
No.
And then you let it go.
Yes.
And it automatically goes back to where it was originally. That is touch automation. It only works when you are touching the fader. And what's great about that is if I have all my other automation parameters turned on, like panning and whatnot, if I'm not touching the pan knob, it's not going to be affected. Whereas if I'm in write mode, doesn't matter what I'm doing, it's going to overwrite it. So a lot of people do write mode as a first pass. It's just kind of quick and dirty. And then they switch over to touch mode and just kind of fine tune the bits that, that they didn't get the first time. That's pretty much a common practice. The other thing you could do is just avoid write mode altogether and just do touch. I go back and forth, but touch mode and latch mode, which we'll get to later, are pretty much my go-tos. Okay, so there's a quick overview of what touch mode is. And a quick reminder, automation is always erasable. If you select an area that you've automated like this, I just, with my selector tool, just highlighted it and hit delete. Boom, they're gone. Okay, let's go back to the ebook. What does it say? Okay, we're going to use the memory location. See, we're bringing it all together. Okay, we want to open the memory locations window and go to the 99 music fader to display the fader window for the music track and locate the cursor to the beginning of the session. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. Okay. Okay, memory locations. Here's our memory locations window. We want there it is, number 99 music. So basically, if you click on that, if you double click on it, you can change the name, add comments, whatever. But if you just let's see here. There you go. It kind of moves your window. That's what memory locations do. They also go back to however you set it. So our zoom preset and our cursor is at a specific spot. Well, there we go. Okay. Press zoom 2 to set an appropriate zoom level. Okay. Sounds good. And then put this back on waveform because that's where it was before. Okay, press return and play back the session to review the music and identify areas to automate. The overall goals should include the following. Okay, this is where we actually start to get creative, finally. Keep the music relatively loud, near the current levels, at the beginning to introduce the guitar theme. Just think back to any commercials that, or anything that you've seen recent, ever, really. But commercials, since this is a commercial, think back to commercials. They usually start with music and then someone starts talking right away. What happens? We want to hear that person talk, so the music quickly dips down so we can hear what they say. And then at the end, usually when there's some sort of tagline, the music comes back up again. You know, it just kind of helps the whole flow of the whole thing. But it usually starts with the music really loud and then a quick dip so we can hear what, you know, the brand wants us to hear. Lower the music during the middle section around -7 decibels, so it's helping us out. That's good. Raise it again under the narrator's voice at the end and then fade it out before reaching the end marker. Okay, so let's do it. So we'll hit return to go back to the beginning. And the end marker is right there. So we want to make sure that we are, you can see the video ends right there. So we want to make sure that we have faded out by the time we hit this line, this marker, this memory location. Make sure we're faded out. So pretty much it's letting us know, start fading here. There we go. So let's do it. Let's put this in volume mode so we can see what we're doing. I'll go open up the mix window because it's easier to mix. And let's go ahead and watch the video as we do it. Yeah, let's put this over here, Cecil. This is where Pro Tools start doing a lot of stuff. Okay, we can also, there we go, right here. This is the automation mode selector in the mix window. This is usually where I do it. Touch. Okay, get ready because here we go.
I checked that already, sir. It's making a sound like rah, rah. No.
I'm still got my hand on the fader.
Yes. What? And then it's making sort of.
And this will happen sometimes if you got a slow computer like me. But that's okay. Because what's cool is, what touch mode does is, if it stops inadvertently like that, it'll keep what you've done. It'll just reset back to where it was before, wherever you left off. So all I have to do is just go back here. See, watch the fader. I left off here. Here's the music fader. So I'll just go back a little bit, about to there. That's where my fader is there. And then I'm still in touch mode. So I'll start playing and put my finger on the mouse just to keep it there.
What? And then it's making sort of a boom. A kaboom. No, I don't think a jump start's gonna do it.
Fade up.
We know how you feel. That's why we make loans to folks with credit problems.
Oh. And then what you can do here too is, if you screwed up just a little bit right here, you can always use your pencil tool. Pencils also draw automation. So I'll just go like this. Boom. There we go. So you can always use pencils to fine tune. Like if I want this slope to be a little more gradual, I can always go like that. It's about the same, but you get the idea. So let us zoom back out. There we go. So we started off strong, went down, and then faded up, music up right there. And then where it said fade, I faded out, and I did this all with the touch. So let's do it again. I know the book doesn't show you how to do it this way, but I think it's really important. Let's do it again, but with latch. I'm going to show you the difference between touch and latch. Latch mode. So with touch, when your finger's on the fader, that's where the fader stays. When you let go, when you no longer touch it, it goes back to where it was before. With latch, the difference is, instead of going back to where it was before, it stays. So in this case, because we're at the same level for a good 10 seconds, I could take my finger off of the mouse, get a drink, and then basically get ready to move the fader again, but I don't have to keep my finger pressed on the mouse the whole time. Latch is good when you have long parts where you're going to be at the same level and you could step away from the mouse for like, I don't know, a good 10 seconds or so. That's the only difference though. Just like touch, it only works, it only turns on when you hit the mouse. So it's still a much safer option than right. So let's do it again in latch mode and watch the difference.
I checked that already, sir. It's making you sound like...
See, I let go,
No.
and it stays there.
Yes.
My computer is going down, as you can see. All right, and then we'll go, yeah, it stays in latch mode.
Yes. What? And then it's making...
And if I want to change it,
boom.
I press again.
Boom.
And as you can see,
No, I don't think a jump start's gonna do it.
We know how you feel. That's why we make loans to folks with credit promises.
and if I wanted to, you know, a nice long silent part, I could just let it go and then hit stop. So that's the difference between touch and latch. Latch, you don't have to keep your finger on the mouse during a long part where the volume isn't really changing. Yeah, so there we go. Viewing the automation, we could go back into waveform. Let's see here. After recording volumations, you can graphically view and edit the data using the volume automation playlist. You can draw automation on any available automation playlist and use standard editing techniques to clean up existing automation. Okay, this is super cool. So number one, click the track view selector and put it on volume. Okay, well, we are already there, but let's say we go back to waveform.
No, I don't think a jump start's gonna do it.
We know how you feel.
And then you click on waveform again, put it on volume, and you can see the work that you did. Or this is cooler. This is the way I like to do it. Every track in the lower left corner, there's this little icon that's got like a diagonal line. It's called Show Hide Automation Lanes. Click on that. As you can see, it's the same thing as this. So if you want to keep your waveform open and see your automation, all you have to do is open up your automation lane. Every track has one. And then you get the best of both worlds. And you can make it a little bigger. And same thing, you can, you know, draw on it. That sort of a thing. Yeah, that's what I like to do. And one more little trick, which I don't think they talk about in this chapter. If you go up to options, automation follows edit. Check this out. When this is checked and I move this, the automation goes with it. Right? Right. If I uncheck it, check this out. I move this and the automation stays there. Why might you want to do this? Think about it. This is a music track.
I checked that already, sir. It's making you sound like...
So it's very possible that the client comes in and is just like, I love it. I love the feel of it. I just hate that guitar twanging crap. I want a metal song. And you're like, okay, whatever. But you did all this work on the fades. So what you can do is go up to Automation Follows Edit, deselect it. Now all your hard automation work is no longer linked to the track. So now I can delete this, pop in another music track, and let's see here. Let's just find something really quick. Oh, here we go. I'll go to the middle part where it's pretty consistent volume. Okay. And you can see that even though I have a completely different track in here, the automation is still there. So if I play it,
Check that already, sir. It's making you sound like...
and sure enough at the end, so that's really powerful feature. I'm going to undo all that. That's called Automation Follows Edit. I'm going to turn it back on because that's sort of where it is by default. But if you ever need to change music or you want to keep all of your automation but just apply it to a different track, you can even copy and paste it to another track. Again, this is why you mix in Pro Tools and not in Premiere or Media Composer, because it's things like this that give you this like tremendous power. Okay, so nudging automation. This is super cool. Set the nudge value to 1 frame. Using the selector tool, select the final curve and nudge the automation to fine-tune your fade out. Try to make the fade out conclude precisely at the end marker. Okay, so this is great. Once again, you're using the nudge tool. Before we use the nudge tool to, for example, let's make sure we are on minutes and seconds. Our nudge tool, we want it to be on, what was it, 1 second? Okay, so for example, when we nudge, we hit plus or minus or comma period to nudge a clip back and forth. We can do this with automation. You select the area that you want to nudge and then hit your nudge shortcut keys, plus or minus on the extended keyboard or comma period on the regular keyboard. See? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So they want this to end. They want this keyframe to be right there. If you listen to commercials, they are precise. They want to pack in as much information and fun and action or whatever is going on as possible in that 30 seconds. So we're not going to fade out early. We're going to fade out to the millisecond at the 30-second mark. So let's go and make this, oops, sorry, nudge. Let's make this 10 milliseconds. So now I'm going to nudge it. And why don't I zoom in some more? Maybe a little more. In fact, you know what? I can use my zoom toggle, right? Zoom toggle right there. And now I've filled up the whole screen with the area that I've highlighted. We're going back to zoom toggle. When you highlight something and hit the zoom toggle button, it fills up your whole edit window with that selection. It's a great way to zoom in. So I want this keyframe to end right there. So let's make the nudge 1 millisecond. That's a little too much, or too crazy. There we go. Boom. So now, if we unzoom toggle, play this a little bit. There we go. Perfect. We're just jamming through this because at this point I think we're getting more comfortable with Pro Tools, and there's a lot to learn in these last 2 chapters. So yeah, you could nudge automation. Drawing automation. Okay, in this part of the exercise, you will automate a reverb plugin. Okay, so now we're going to automate an effect. Great. So let's see. We're going to automate a reverb plugin on the effects track using drawing techniques. So I just showed you a few minutes ago how to use your pencil. So we're going to use our pencil to basically make an effect weaker or stronger over time. Automation. So click the track view selector on the effects track and choose deverb wet dry. Okay, let's see what we have here. So first, view, edit window views, inserts. Let's see what we got here. Okay, sure enough, our effects track has deverb in it. There it is. Okay, so we want to, let's see, track view selector. Okay, FX, waveform. We've got this, and then we've got that. So basically what happened before this started up, and this is something that you probably have to, I think they show you how to do this in the chapter, so this is something you have to play with by yourself. When you open up an effect, you've got a ton of different parameters, like how strong or how weak you want the decay, how strong or weak do you want the compression, this or that. Each one of those parameters is automatable. In this case, what they did with the session is they automated this deverb plugin, but just the wet dry parameter. There's so many other parameters we can automate, but they just did this one. So that's why we just see wet dry. So we click on that. Yes, there we go. And what we're seeing here is, let's click on deverb. There we go. So in the world of effects, dry means the effect is not applied at all, and wet means the effect is 100% applied. So it's like it's super saturated or it's not saturated at all, basically. So wet means it's super saturated. As you can see right here, dry and wet, it's at 0%. But as you can see, this is how I would make the effect weak or strong, weak or strong. So we're starting off dry. Locate the explosion near the add reverb marker. So we're gonna click and hold on the pencil and choose line. Okay, I'll tell you that in a minute. The line pencil tool will become active. Using the pencil tool, draw an upwards line to increase the mix to about 50–60%. So this is the explosion waveform, right? So it looks like about halfway through the explosion, we do what looks like a fade up. What we're doing is we're increasing the reverb from nothing to about, looks like 50%. So we're giving it 50% reverb over time. And we're doing that with the pencil tool. So let's zoom in a little bit. Right there. That was my phone. So pencil tool, click, hold, and you can see kind of like the trim tool, which we learned about last week, there's all these other options. Freehand is what it's on by default. What that means is if I go like this, I can just draw whatever I want. Line, which is what we're going to do here, gives us a little more control, gives us more sort of what we're used to, something like that. We could do crazy stuff. Look at that. That's insane. I guess if you were just maybe doing a scene where someone's in outer space and talking to aliens or something, maybe random might be an interesting automation thing to do. That's not what we want here though. We want something that looks like this. So we want the line tool. Boom. Okay, so we go like this. And you see the percentage in the upper part of that track right there? Going to go up to about 50%. And so what we're doing here is we're telling the effect, the wet, dry aspect of the effect to go from nothing, basically 0, up to 50, 60% over time, over this bit of time. We're automating the effect. And if we want, we could bring it back down like so. They don't tell us to do that, but I'm doing it. So what this means is the reverb effect is going up to about 50% power, and then at about this point in time, just so it doesn't go on forever, I'm basically slowly fading out the effect. The sound is still there, it's just the effect is being automated. So let's hear what that sounds like. Oh, it's better if we watch it because then it's more exciting.
Yes. What? And then it's making sort of a boom. Kaboom.
That the way it like, that's reverb. Reverb makes the sound reverberate over time. When we didn't have that in there, it sounded like this.
Yes. What? And then it's making sort of a boom. Kaboom.
It's subtle, but this actually makes it sound, it makes the reverb, it's adding actual reverberation. Whereas before, there was sort of like a decay happening in the sound, but here we're adding even more decay. And so it's making it sort of fade out a little quicker, but fade out using reverb on top of reverb that's already naturally there. I don't know, it's kind of a cool way to, an advanced sort of way of thinking, but it's a cool way to do something to a sound, is sort of doubling an effect. Okay. Feel free to redraw and experiment with the automation. Okay, let's try this. What if I want it to be, just go up to 100% right there. And then I can use my hand tool to change this keyframe like that. And just do a quick fade out. This is probably going to sound bonkers.
Yes. What? And then it's making sort of a boom. Kaboom.
And then it just goes whoop. There is a difference. If you listen to the reverb right here.
Yes. What? And then
It's almost kind of like super in your face, whereas before it was like
yes. What? And then it's making,
it's just a little less in your face. So yeah, that's the power of automating an effect. Deleting automation. Let's go. We're just zooming through this. The atmosphere track includes some unwanted automation data. In the selection, you will delete the automation using the grabber or the selector tool. Oh, I showed you guys how to use this. Locate the atmosphere track and set its track view to volume. And an errant breakpoint is causing the wind to become gradually quieter. This will happen sometimes. Like sometimes you'll be editing. There it is. Atmosphere, waveform, volume. Let's zoom out a little bit. Okay. So as you can see in this video, he's outside, but as he's talking, the wind is slowly fading out. That's because sometimes keyform, you're messing around, you're experimenting, you're automating, you're re-automating. Keyframes will accidentally be placed, and then sometimes a fade out happens. It just happens. So when this happens, You're like, oh, well, what you can do is you can take your selector tool. There's a keyframe here. There's a keyframe here. But if I delete this keyframe, then there's no second keyframe. So watch what happens. There is no second keyframe. So it just stays where the first keyframe is. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is using the hand tool, going over the keyframe, and when you hit the Option button, or Alt on Windows, it's a hand with a little minus symbol. So it's, right now I'm just hanging out over it, and then once you hit Option or Alt, the minus symbol lets me know I'm ready to take it away. So Option, click. Boom, it's gone. So if I want to zoom in, for example, here, let's say this is where you get really picky. I like how this sounds here, and I like this volume change up to here, but I don't like this weird like in the middle. So with the hand tool, I can just, oops, sorry, click, 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 and now it's just keyframing from here to here. It's a much smoother fade. Super cool. So yeah, what's the difference between using the selector tool and the grabber? Well, with the selector, it's a great way to choose a bunch of keyframes at once. They just want to delete. And with the grabber tool, it's a great way to pinpoint specific ones or even move them around. See, now I'm just clicking and dragging. Super cool. Or just full on delete. Okay, before exiting Pro Tools, you should play through the session and make sure you're satisfied with your results. So, you know what to do. Zoom out. Hit return. Play the whole thing back. And with your automation windows open for music, effects, and atmosphere, take a picture. Make sure your automation, either your automation lanes or the automation track view selector is set on volume. I need to see your automation on the music, effects, and atmosphere tracks. Take a picture of that, send it to me. You are done. Only one more to go.